it's time to go, remember what you're leaving. Remember the best. My friends have always been the best of me. Hello and welcome back to the Doctor Who Marathon. I'm your host McEdam, and today we're going to be talking about the Series 6 finale, The Wedding of River Song, written by Stephen Moffat and is directed by Jeremy Webb. We will also be talking about the prequel episode to it, which is also written by Stephen Moffat, and we will also be talking, just briefly, on the Inforarium. I'm definitely butchering that name, which is written by Stephen Moffat. However, there's no actual credited director on any of the prequel episodes. That's really bizarre. So, yeah, this is the conclusion to Series 6, and it is the first finale in the revived era, which is a single episode length. It's not a two-parter unless you want to count the cliffhanger for closing time, which leads directly into this story. That could essentially count. But it also as well kind of counts as a third segment, if you will, to the two-parter at the very start of the series, The Impossible Astronaut and Day of the Moon, as this story ties directly with that, featuring the older Doctor, which gets assassinated by the astronaut from Lake Siestro at the start of that story before the younger Doctor gets introduced in that adventure. So, big wibbly-wobbly, tiny-whiny adventure. And like with the most of Stephen Moffat era, the stakes get bigger, but the story actually expands sideways into a much more character-focused adventure compared to the Russell T Davies era. And that sounds like it is the building blocks for a good story. You know, it's now the entire universe. The Pandorica opens and the Big Bang were also an event which basically absorbed all of space and time. And this story does a very similar thing to that. And the stakes, in a sense, have never been higher, as well as been pondering some of the big questions of Series 6, like the question that must never be asked, hidden in plain sight, which has been referenced to in stories such as Let's Kill Hitler. So there's a lot to tackle here, there's a lot of meat to grind, but what is the mainstream opinion of this story? What is the overall consensus on this story? Well, when the story first aired, people absolutely loved it. It was strange, it was bizarre, it was quirky, it was never dull. It was something that a lot of fans and a lot of mainstream audiences really seem to really gravitate towards. However, time has not been kind to this story. It's not remembered as favourably as it was when it aired. In fact, in the, I believe it's volume 7 of the Diary River Song trailer, they actually mention a massive plot hole that is in this episode, dealing around River Song and how the astronaut suit works. And at the time, a lot of people would get very upset if this is mentioned and try and work their way around it. However, now it's just generally considered a bad creative decision on the part of Stephen Moffat. In terms of the writing, it seems a very strange and very backwards plan for the bad guys. We'll talk about that when we get to that scene. So yeah, that's basically the setup of the story. It's the conclusion to Series 6. However, at the same time, it's not. The story doesn't really answer any questions, but rather leaves more questions to be unanswered for Series 7. Many questions which have been built up from Series 5. For example, who is that voice? How did they blow up the TARDIS in the finale? And all this stuff. Nothing gets really answered, with the exception of what the hell the question is. And even still, there isn't the answer of the question, just the answer of what is the question. That was probably a bit confusing, but I'll explain when we get to the finale of the episode. But before we talk into the episode, let's talk about that prequel. After the airing of Closing Time, the BBC released, I believe on YouTube, an official prequel episode, which they have done for a few episodes in the Series 6 era, specifically The Impossible Astronaut, Curse of the Black Spot, A Good Man Goes to War, Let's Kill Hitler, and I can't remember if there was another prequel after that. But yeah, so this is another case of the prequel. Oh, sorry. Does All Night Up count with Closing Time? That kind of counts as a prequel, so I'm going to count that as well. Here we don't actually learn anything story-wise. There's nothing really there in terms of narrative. Essentially, it's just two guards checking up on these tanks, these water tanks that it seemed to be in this rocked form base of theirs, which is actually, this story is technically not a prequel. It actually is, it's actually chronologically placed in concurrently with our story as we see this scene basically set up within the story itself. These tanks seem to be empty when all of a sudden we see a silence which puts the hand onto the, oh no, that doesn't, it just appears out of nowhere, as well as we get a digital clock which seems to be flickering and is stuck at a particular time, which for those of you who don't know, the time is the Doctor's death within Utah in the story The Impossible Astronaut. So, is this prequel worth watching? In terms of narrative, in terms of a actual focus, it's just fluff. You don't need it, and you can easily skip it. However, I will say, there's no credit to director. I'm going to guess it's Jeremy Webb, who also directed the main episode. However, we know for a fact that David Hughes didn't direct his prequel episode for Closing Time, so I'm not too sure. However, I will say that the atmosphere in terms of directing in this prequel is very well handled, and even though it doesn't set up anything story-wise, I do like watching it prior to the episode of The Wedding of River Song, mainly to set up that atmosphere, that environment when we get into Area 52, which is a fun little gag in the story itself. So let's actually talk about the main event to talk about. Let's talk about the Wedding of River Song. And right off the bat, we kick off with a bang, as time seems to be in flux. Everything seems to be happening all at once. We see a landscape of London, however, everything has just been altered. And I'm going to say this is probably one of the best visual effects in Doctor Who's history in terms of CGI work. My God, these visuals look absolutely stunning. You get these visuals of trains everywhere, whilst you've got these cars that are all attached to air balloons. It looks like something from one of those really elaborate adverts, about car adverts, just flying around London near the Shard, which I guess is also a reference to later on with the Bells of St. John, who knows. And you get to see these magnificent, wonderful worlds. We get to see kids playing in the park when all of a sudden they're getting attacked by aerodactyls. You see a Roman soldier waiting in traffic, and probably one of the best, you actually see Winston Churchill, Simon, I can't remember his last name, reprising his role from the first ever series of the revived era of Doctor Who, from the story The Unquiet Dead, makes a return here as a cameo appearance. This is really important because this is actually the first time a character who was in the Russell T Davies era has actually physically appeared. We have had many references to the Russell T Davies era, most noticeably in Let's Kill Hitler, when the Doctor sees Amy, Martha and Donna. But here is actually a first physical actor reprising his role, and he's on, I believe it's BBC One News, where he's discussing about his latest Christmas special, which he explains there's going to be ghosts of the Christmas past, present and future all happening at the same time, which is not only a reference to the the fact of Wibbly Wobbly Tiny Whiny, but also a reference to the Christmas Carol, which is one of Charles Dickens' one of the most popular novels that he's written. So you've got all of these really great, really bizarre visuals. We also see Winston Churchill and his personal doctor is the Silurian, specifically the Silurian that we have seen in Cold Blood and Hungry Earth. That one who takes a fascination to humanity, the one who kidnaps the child and then lets him free when he sees his father concerned. And it's like, oh yeah, we didn't hurt him. He is actually reprises his role as a Silurian in the story. I can't remember the name of the doctor, but he is essentially helping Winston Churchill with his health. Winston Churchill seems to notice something wrong with time as he asks what the time is, and it seems to be always the same time, and it seems to always be the same date, the 11th of April, which is actually when the Impossible Astronaut takes place. So Winston Churchill, after being concerned, after noticing this strange anomaly, this strange event in time, he goes to, he asks for his soothsayer to appear. Bring the soothsayer to me. And so his guards bring him, his Roman guards bring the soothsayer to Winston Churchill, and Winston Churchill's just like, so you keep telling me something is wrong with time. Tick-tock goes the clock, as the old song says, but the clock's never ticked. Tell me in words that I can understand what happened to time. And so the soothsayer looks up to reveal it is actually the doctor, sporting longer hair, and I'd like to say a nice fuzzy beard, like yours truly, to which he explains, a woman. Clearly a reference to River Song. And that is actually that's just the pre-credit sequence of the episode. That is just so cool. That is the one thing you can't say about the story is that it's dull. There is so much stuff that it throws at you and so much
visuals that it's just absolutely stunning to watch. A massive props out to Jeremy Webb, who directed the story, who had previously directed the story The Curse of the Black Spot, which that story was really good, but however did drop in certain cases. For example, some actors kind of felt bored in that story, and there was a lot of continuity errors in that story in terms of directing, as one character seems to just disappear in that story. But here, it seems like Jeremy Webb felt he kind of knew that he was disappointed with that story, so he decided, you know what, I'm just going to throw everything in terms of a visual style and really just lets the style. I also love the music. Murray Gold, who has done majority of the music of series 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and now up to 6. His music is really just, he has mastered the art of Doctor Who music, and his music has become synonymous with the show for a very good reason. It is very good. So when we get back into the story, we actually cut earlier, and we basically see the Doctor going on basically a personal mission, which actually it takes place either the same day or the day after closing time, as the Doctor still sporting his green long jacket, which again I absolutely love. It's actually one of my favourite clothing of the 11th Doctor, and I'm disappointed that it wasn't used that much. And the Stetson, which Craig gives him, and he basically goes on his personal mission to try and find out what the Silence want with him. Why does he have to die? And this segment of the story, where the Doctor is on his own, he's basically gone on this small little mission, which I like to say takes half of the episode, which kind of becomes a problem when we get into the second half. It's also intertwined with the Doctor and Winston Churchill discussing the story of this narrative, how the Doctor learnt about something wrong with time. And when they discussing it, it's always interesting. It's never just cuts back to the Doctor and Churchill, only for them just to remind us that they exist. There's always something interesting that they say here. And when I was rewatching this story and I saw these first half of the story, I completely forgot why people did not like this story. It is absolutely gorgeous. I love the scenery here with Churchill and the Doctor in that Roman version of Buckingham Palace, and they're defending themselves, but they don't know why. There's also some really great lines in those segments, especially when Churchill asks him why did he summon his friends, and the Doctor makes this small little speech. It's like, you've always got to remember the best of you. Stephen Moffat has always written some of the best monologues for the 11th Doctor, and here is no exception. We also get then the actual little narrative in itself. We actually get a cameo appearance from a Dalek, which actually fulfills the rumoured contract agreement that a Dalek must appear in every series. Whether that's true or not, it's actually not confirmed. However, seeing as the Daleks always make an appearance, even in the series, which kind of advertise the fact that there will be no Dalek stories, to have them have a surprise cameo here is really strange. But it actually, I think, sets up really well, as it sets up the stakes really high. In fact, that's the first scene of the story in which the Doctor, you see him talking to himself through this camera, as he stated, there was this god, this trickster. Imagine your greatest fear if you're alone and abandoned, and then you looked up and you see the devil himself. As the Doctor looks up to the camera and he says, "Hello, Dalek," and it's revealed then that the audience's viewpoint we're actually seeing from the Dalek's point of view, as the Dalek starts screaming, "You will be exterminated," but the Doctor's like, "Shut up, I need your information, everything you have about the silence." We then go on to this like almost Star Wars like bar where the Doctor meets this monk, but then he finds out the monk isn't actually real. He finds out that this monk is actually part of the Tesselector, a ship of miniaturized people that can transform itself into any person's appearance, and it is being investigated in the silence. It first appeared, of course, in Let's Kill Hitler. Now, this is actually something I actually wasn't a fan of, because as soon as the Tesselector made an appearance, as soon as the Doctor mentioned that the Tesselector's in the episode, you know exactly how the Doctor's going to escape his death. There's been teasers, there's been ideas, everybody's like, oh, it could be the flesh, it could be the Tesselector, maybe he didn't, maybe there's some alternative reasons, maybe they were just there to set up a false setup for the actual finale. However, as soon as the Tesselector gets involved, you know exactly how this episode is going to end. And what's really worse is that it harms the emotional impact of the story in a negative light. What do I mean? Well, let me get that when we cross the halfway point and the Doctor finishes off his mini little story. But keeping back on the great stuff, the Doctor again is on his personal mission. He needs to find out why, and he asks the Tesselector crew, where can they find the silence's weakest link? And they basically, we learn that one of the silence is one person who worships the silence religion is this Viking-like chess player, which the Doctor challenges him in this tournament known as the live chess, in which the more somebody moves a piece, the volts on the chessboards become higher and higher, and you could actually die by having too many moves. And I love this whole like arena thing with the chess playing. It's so British. The idea of this Colosseum-like style environment for chess is just, that is just, that screams British sci-fi for you. And I love how calm and collected the Doctor is in that scene. He knows that he's essentially won at that point, but he's not. He's he's trying to contain his bragging to try and find out why he needs to die. This character played by Mark Gatiss, strangely enough, his character name in the episode and his character name in the credits are two different names. I can't remember what the names are. I've just called him the Viking Silence. He's not a big role in the story. He gets quickly killed after he takes the Doctor to Dorium, Dorian was a character who was introduced at the start of the Pandorica Opens and had then reappeared in A Good Man Goes to War. However, in that story, he was beheaded and was presumed dead. However, as this Viking silence states, the headless monks, the segment of the silence religion, decapitate people alive, and so their Dorian's head is actually sustained alive. And because he's rich, he can actually afford to have like this box that can maintain his head, as every other head there has basically not only been kept alive, but now have been rotted and turned into skulls. And you have this really gorgeous Indiana Jones-like vibe to the whole scene. And there's also like a trap door where the Viking he goes down a pit and he gets swallowed up by skulls. How that even works, I have no idea. But Dorian basically tells the Doctor that there's this question, the silence, they worship the idea of this impossible question, this question that should never be answered, to not again be like, the answer should not go out to the universe, because it'll have like really bad ramifications. So the silence is there to protect the question, even if that means killing the Doctor before he has a chance, as the Doctor seems to know the answer, but the question itself, the question that the Doctor must never be asked, is one of the big mysteries of the story. And so Dorian tells the Doctor off screen, and the Doctor starts chasing around in his TARDIS. You know, there's this great, one probably easily the best scene in the story if you're a classic fan. This is something I have kind of mixed feelings about, but as someone who is a fan of the classic era and knows what this scene means to the universe and also to real life, it is actually really just, you know, it touches you there. Essentially, the Doctor tries to tell Dorian, it's like, it's still waiting, I can still delay my death. Hey, I can help Rose Tyler with her homework. I can go to every of Jack's stag parties, which is a really funny line. And he's on the phone to someone to try and get someone to, you know, come out with him to have a field day. And the Doctor's just like, time has never got a glove on me. I will not face my death. I can run, I can keep running. I just have to keep running away from the question as much as possible. I know now that why I have to die, but I gotta keep running because time is not the boss of me. Only for the woman on the other side of the phone to state that, sorry, Doctor, your friend, Brigadier Alistair Lethbridge Stewart, has passed away. He died peacefully in his sleep. He always made us brew an extra brandy in case you came around. And the Doctor, he goes all quiet, he puts the phone down, and he realises it's his time. It's time for him to die. For those of you who don't know, Brigadier Alistair Lethbridge Stewart, played by Nicholas Courtney, was a character from the classic era of Doctor Who, and is one of the most prominent characters during the Third Doctor era, appearing in almost all of his stories. He also returned again numerous occasions in stories like Downtime, Death Takes a Holiday, and The Revenge of the Bane, which was the Sarah Jane appearance, and it was his last appearance. Within 2011, in February of that year, the year Series 6 was started making, Nicholas Courtney, the actor who played Brigadier, passed away due to, I want to say, cancer. I could be wrong on that front. And it was a massive hit to the fan base because he was such a prominent role into many people's lives in terms of the fandom of the show. However, I will say that in terms of the new series fan, this scene means nothing to them. The idea, like from their point of view, just a random character had passed away. But in terms of classic, you know, it's a classic fan moment, and it's one of the things about Stephen Moffat. He's such a classic Who fan that sometimes he kind of forgets that not everybody knows everything about Doctor Who. So this scene, of course, has a massive impact on me, and really, I absolutely loved it. The idea that the Brigadier's death, what pushes the Doctor to accept his death, is such a powerful moment. However, for somebody who is not a Classic Who fan, who never had this connection, this scene must be really weird. But yeah, and so the Doctor goes to Lake Ciencio, and he tells River, who's in the astronaut spacesuit, don't worry, I have to die, this is a fixed point, and this will solidify that the question will not be asked and the answer will not be released to the universe. The Doctor learns in the talks to Winston Churchill earlier on in the episode, in those small little segments, that if you had a secret, if you knew someone knew a secret that must never be told, how would you stop that? Before it got be told, how could you rid that universe of that secret? To which Winston Churchill is like, if I had to, I would kill the man. To which the Doctor states, and then silence will fall. The amount of times he's heard those words, he did not realise that the silence was his. But it was that silence will fall statement is about the Doctor's death. So essentially, the silence in terms of the religion and silences in the phrase silence will fall have nothing to do with each other. In terms of the day, it just so happens that both silences are connected to one another by this religion. So it's really strange in that sense, but it does kind of work. And then we get to the halfway point, and this is where the story falls flat and reminds me why this story is not popular in any stretch of the word. As River Song is essentially, she was raised to be this perfect assassin. She escaped her mind control, the raising up of being a psychopath. But Madame Kavarian has put her in this automatic spacesuit where River Song has to then kill the Doctor. Only for then it turns out that River Song has the ability to drain the weapon system, and the Doctor isn't actually killed during this event, which then fractures the space-time continuum, creating this universe where all of time and space is happening all at once. What? This is a what? So, let me get this straight. The Silence had created an automatic spacesuit which had the energy ability to kill the Doctor, but they some reason put someone who is not only connected to the Doctor, but is known to have fallen in love with the Doctor, to put into the spacesuit and allowing it to be easily disturbed, easily for the systems to be drained by the person that they want to try and kill the individual. Where is the sense in that? That is so stupid and so dumb that, but it does kind of fracture. And this is the thing I was referencing earlier on, where at the time many people tried to defend it. However, now it's just an accepted fact that this is just a massive sort of plot hole, to the point where a Big Finish trailer, The Diary of River Song, even kind of pokes fun at it. And yeah, there is literally 0.0 reasons why River Song needs to be in that suit, especially when you consider that the suit can move on its own, travel on its own, and all of the records of that scene, specifically being Amy, Rory, River Song, and the Delaware the Third, not seeing the astronaut suit. I guess River Song has to know because she was in the suit. It's very confusing, but from their point of view, they can't see who's in the suit. So from all the Silence's point of view, they could have just sent the suit on its own, or at the very least put somebody who they know wants to kill the Doctor. Colonel Runaway, what happened to him? So then that is where time gets fractured, and the story then kicks in with the Silence, the religion of the Silence, wearing these iPad eyes. They crash in and they see the Silences hanging up on the ceilings like bats. And we see Amy Pond also wearing an eye patch, seemingly being converted to the religion in this alternate timeline, and knocks the Doctor out and taking him to her office on a train. And I've heard a lot of people call it the Orient Express. However, there's nothing in the story that actually states it is the Orient Express. And the Doctor basically is like, you got to help me die. You got to help me go around and fix time. You don't know me, but in an alternate timeline, me and you were best friends. We quickly learn that Amy remembers a lot about her history. However, she doesn't remember who Rory Williams is. She knows that she had a husband, but she doesn't have a good memory of who he is, because Rory, who is now Sergeant Williams, is actually one of her soldiers in the religion of the Silence, and they've taken her to Area 52, which is actually a pyramid in America. Love that concept, love that idea. And then the majority episode is in this pyramid. And essentially, we meet up with River Song, we meet up then with Madame Kavarian, who's tied up to a chair, and they're trying to fix time without killing the Doctor. River Song is essentially running the Silence religion at the moment to try and fix time without killing the Doctor. But the Doctor is really pushing, and is like, no, I have to die. This can't. This is really important. If I stay alive, the question will be asked, and I will have to answer. And if that could just make catastrophe even greater than this, so I have to die. And you are being selfish. Try not kill me. The Doctor realizes that if him and River Song touch, then time goes back to the original timeline in which River Song does kill the Doctor. Again, this all relies on the beat that River Song stops the automatic weapon of the astronaut. It's really confusing. But what's really a big issue here, rewatching this story, is the emotional beat, because the Doctor is doing this to try and guarantee his death, so that he does not have to answer the question, to which the answer is extremely dangerous. The question itself is extremely dangerous and could see the end of the universe as we know it. And basically, this is all a massive setup for the question. And majority of these scenes then play out as just Doctor's like, you have to let me die, and River Song's just like, no. There's a great moment where River Song is like, the timeline being altered is at this bubble, and we've sent in a signal outside the bubble to basically tell everybody, the Doctor needs help, he is dying, can you help us? And what River Song explains is that the entire universe outside the bubble has called him back, saying, yes, of course we'll help the Doctor. He has saved us so many times. I love that little scene, but it doesn't really matter in terms of the overarching story, as the Doctor still knows that he has to die because of the question. The question is just so important that he has to die. And the story has been revolving around him accepting his death. That scene with the Brigadier, it's all about him accepting his death, knowing his time has come because of his friend here, one of the people who he cherished and valued the most, had passed away, and he will never get time to see him again in terms of just time in general, in terms of their timelines intersyncing. So he knows now it's his time to go. So yeah, as you could probably tell, this is leading up to something very anticlimactic. Let's talk about the actual wedding segment of the story, because one of the big things about from series 4 is the whole idea of River Song. Who is she? What does she mean to the Doctor? And there's always this playful, flirty nature with them. However, here we get a lot of great scenes in which they're antagonising with each other. The Doctor even stating at one point, I will never marry you. And River Song is trying to speak to the Doctor, but the Doctor is mainly just doing all of this so he can push his death forward, to try and convince River Song that his death is imminent. And the wedding aspect, I felt like was really underlined here. It's something which should have been actually a really important segment, because River Song is, in terms of, personally in my eyes, I think River Song and the Doctor, especially 11th Doctor, really work well as a couple. I'd love to see them get an actual wedding episode dedicated to him. But here, the Doctor, from the Doctor's point of view, feels like he's only allowing this wedding, only going along with River Song's feelings, so that he can make it more comfortable for her to die, for him to die, which I feel really hurts this story, because it doesn't feel like the Doctor really cares about River, or at least not in that degree. However, I will state that in future episodes, specifically the husbands of River Song, this plotline does actually kind of come back within that kind of mindset, to which it is actually then resolved. My issue with that is actually resolved in a later episode, so it's not much of an issue here. But the Doctor whispers something into River Song's ear as they get married. The Doctor states it is his name, and they kiss, and time is reverted back to normal, and the Doctor's dead, and Amy is sad because of the Doctor's death, but she also remembers the alternate timelines after leaving the Doctor in the God Complex. But River Song has a secret. It turns out the Doctor didn't tell her his name. He said something else. He said, "Look into my eye." And when River Song sees in the eye, she sees the corridor of the Tesselector, as the Doctor survived his death. He got past it. He doesn't have to deal with the consequences now that he is now alive. Which means the question can't be that important. It means the Brigadier's death, that impact on him, wasn't that big of a deal. Well done, Stephen Moffat, for ruining your own plotline. That scene with the Doctor waving through River Song could have easily been replaced with a massive sign saying, "Hey, none of this important detail and none of this character growth in this episode matters. See you for Series 7. Why do this to yourself, Stephen Moffat? You shot yourself in the foot! I mean, sure, the story can't end with the Doctor actually dying, because if that happens, the series ends, but still, the emotional hook, the emotional gravitas, is completely lost within the episode, because the Doctor found a way out of his death. I mean, in terms of plot, just pure plot, not talking about character at all, this actually makes sense. The Doctor appearance is there. The Doctor's appearance is shot and killed. This also kind of works retroactively, as in that story, in The Impossible Astronaut, you see the Doctor going halfway through regeneration. We later learn later on in the series that the 11th Doctor is the last in his regeneration cycle because of the War Doctor and the fact that the 10th Doctor regenerated twice. So the 11th Doctor is actually the last in this regeneration cycle. So plot-wise, it kind of still works. Character development and caring about your character-wise, however, this is just a massive, just a really stupid idea. And the worst thing about it is that this is a combination of all the plot lines, not only from Series 6, but from Series 5. And not only does it not answer anything, not only is things just completely forgotten upon, but the story just basically is just fulfillment for, hey, get excited for Series 7, we're going to have more plot lines in Series 7. Because, you got that question being asked, and that was basically the main deal of this episode. It feels like this episode should have been episode 1 of Series 7, as it deals with all of these big questions with no answer. But let's talk about that question, because the story ends with the Doctor revealing to Dorian that he had survived, and that he's going to try and hide away from the rest of the universe for a while. He's got too big, too noisy. It's time for him to go a little bit quieter, to try and hide himself from the rest of the universe. Basically, trying to get back to a much more classic Doctor Who feel of nobody knowing who the fuck the Doctor is. that is the premise that Series 6 is setting up for Series 7, which I'd like to add completely gets forgotten about in Series 7. But Dorian states to the Doctor as he's walking out, the question still needs to be asked. The question you've been running away from all your life. Doctor Who. Doctor Who. The question is the title of the series. This final moment is fine wine. Because think about it. What could be bigger than the entire universe being shattered to the point where everything is happening at the same time in the same place? What could actually end the universe? Well, what about in terms of real life? One of the biggest questions of the series, one of the things that keeps the show so engaging, that the fact that we don't even know the main character's name, is what if that is answered? Sure, it can't be answered because otherwise the series will just end with no chance of revival. But it's a really good tease to get the audience interested as one of the biggest questions. It also means that earlier stories, even in the classic era, specifically the 7th Doctor era, ties into this. This is all to do with the Cardinal Master Plan. For those of you who don't know, in the 7th Doctor era, there was an idea behind the scenes which was being dubbed the Cardinal Master Plan, despite the fact that Andrew Cardinal, who the idea is named after, had very little to do with it. Essentially, there was this idea to make the Doctor's life more mystery by explaining a little bit more and reveal that he is essentially an almost godlike entity who might be even above the Time Lords, something like that. It's basically bringing up those ideas there, the idea of Doctor Who as this big mystery for the series up again. The Cardinal Master Plan is back, and retroactively those 7th Doctor stories are now tying in to what's currently happening within the series in Series 6. And yeah, so overall, Wedding of River Song, it's majority, for the first half it's really good, really strong, had no issues. In fact, visually it's probably one of the best looking stories so far, and it is and has some really great moments, really great dialogue, and the Doctor's character throughout most of it is well handled. However, when we get to the second act, the story really starts to suffer with plot conveniences, plot holes, and a complete betrayal of any character motivation within the narrative really takes effect and really makes hinders the story of being great. But before we finish this vlog, we have one more story to talk about. The short episode, The Inforarium. I keep thinking it's called The Informant, but it's not. It's called the Inforarium. I butchered that name. But essentially, it's a short little episode that was advertised as a sort of prequel to the Snowmen, or at least set prior to the Snowmen in the Series 7 box set. In fact, it even has the intro style from the Series 7B with that reddish, purplish hue at the start. And so, essentially, it's to deal with the idea that the Doctor is trying to rid himself, all information out of him from the universe with this. Basically, it's like a library of information which is being quantum locked. It's on like 10 different dimensions of sort. It's in this person's mind of every information about the Doctor. And the Doctor has basically done something which he learned from the silence of making it memory proof. As soon as you look away, as soon as you are not privy to this information, you quickly forget about it. However, because of the way this place is structured, it keeps getting forgotten. I also like the idea that Matt Smith is so clearly green screened in this scene. because he's supposed to be a hologram in this scene, and it makes it so, and despite it looking pretty pants, it makes it actually much more easier to believe that it's a hologram, especially with the lighting not matching the scene, to which is the scene itself is dark with a lot of blue and red lights, as if like it's in danger of sorts. And essentially the Doctor has trapped this guy in a sort of loop where he sees that his information is being corrupted, and he sees this hologram, to which the Doctor is just like, I can memory proof this, you'll forget about it as soon as it turns away, you might want to look at your system. He looks at his system and he sees that it's being corrupted, only to see a hologram of the Doctor have no memory of who he is, and the conversation goes back and forth. There are actually fan edits where this story is actually expanded on for like 30 minutes, half an hour, which is really funny. So there's not really much to it, but it does set up the idea that the Doctor is making an effort to try and rid the universe of information about him, try and keep him on the low end of the universe's sticks. So that's a concept, that's an idea, and for a short little episode, it actually really works. I actually really enjoyed it. There's nothing really much there in terms of character or thing, but it's a fun little, like narratively focused short, which then has this like fun little twist at the end where time is repeating on itself in terms of the main character in that story, the guard of this Inforarium. He gets basically stuck in a loop where he's repeating the same actions over and over again, which is kind of funny. So there you go, that is The Wedding of River Song. It's prequel and the short story, you know, it's called The Inforarium. So overall, really weak, a massive disappointment for the Series 6 conclusion. However, there is stuff to like in each story that we've tackled with the prequel, The Wedding, and The Inforarium. So whether I recommend it, it's actually surprisingly hard to actually come with a consensus. There's so much great, there's so much good in it, but it is so much bad to the point where it just really falls flat, and I can see a lot of fans getting really annoyed by this story, especially retroactively looking back, seeing where these storylines and plot lines go after this, and what happens to River Song, and blah blah blah. So I actually don't know if I recommend it. I say if you're interested, watch it, but be warned, it's not the strongest in terms of characters. So there you go, that is The Wedding River Song and the two little shorts. So join me next time when the Doctor is crash landing in a small little family's life as he takes inspiration from the Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe to inspire these kids and a mother to live Christmas at its very best. So join me next time for the Doctor, I can't remember what it's called. The Doctor, it's not the Lion in the Wardrobe. I can't remember what the story is called. That's really bad. So join me next time for that. I'll see you next time on Doctor Who Marathon. Ta-ra!